Hello. Today I have just a short video where I wanted to comment on an idea, I guess you could say, to express something that I think that a lot of people in cultivation practices or in Western occultism don't necessarily fathom, you could say. So to put some pretext into it, in this YouTube channel, there's an entire series on the tarot. There's a series that I'm working on right now on the I Ching, of course, the Magician's I Ching. And there's a section on the runes, among other things too. But those ones in particular all have kind of magical intonations, right? They relate to magic. And I think that if we consider magic as the power of using will to alter elements of reality, to cause change to occur, then we have to also ask, well, what is fundamental magical technology? Right? What is it that is a technology that is the product of magic? And what is magic itself? So if magic depends on the human will, or sentient will, then magic doesn't exist outside of sentient will or human will. So magic is not, we're not going into fairyland here and the kind of the New Age concept or the Wiccan concept or what have you of magic as being this invisible force that's all around us or something like that, and that the magic comes from the elves and the sprites and the gnomes and the wood nymphs, out in Dungeons and Dragons land or something like that, right? And that humans just use it or something like that. In fact, magic could be seen as the first truly supernatural or supranatural, above the natural, but a part of the natural construction created by man, by humans, right? It's possible, if there's some other sentient species out there, that they might also have created magic. In fact, it would be very hard to imagine that they could function in any way recognizable to us if they hadn't. Because fundamentally, this is what magical technology is. When I'm talking about magic now, I'm talking about magical technology, not as an action, but as a way to achieve things. We take things that exist in nature and we abstract them. We create something abstract that we then define, and this is symbol. Okay? So when we were able to take the great cattle, the buffaloes, the aurochs, or what have you, that roamed the plains 20,000 years ago with our ancestors, we're able to take that and paint something in a cave that was that somehow there and not just out there running on the plains. That was magic. That's the moment that we had a magical technology. When you can make a symbol that represents a thing and therefore can define that thing and can have power over that thing, can influence that thing, can influence how that thing relates to you and how that thing relates to others. So language, as in speech, is not itself magic, because that's a part of nature. We make sounds. Sounds are part of nature. That's something else. That's a primordial force. You could say that sound is vibration, that it comes from the divine Om, right? And that the use of sound and manipulation of sounds is the manipulation of a force that exists within nature. But that's a different thing. But when we take sounds and create words or symbols, pictograms or hieroglyphs or letters that represent those sounds, then we're trapping those sounds. And we can then use that to create language in the written form that nobody has to speak, that can preserve itself beyond our own lifetime. So suddenly we're time traveling into the future by being able to record things that will survive after we've died and after everyone who knew us has died. So this is magical technology. And we don't think of it as magic these days, as you know, you don't think of writing as magic inherently as a rule, because it seems so normal to us, because we've lived within that paradigm for so long that this seems like, of course, I mean, it's natural. It's what everything we do is based on, right? We are creatures now that interact completely with abstraction all the time. But if you stop and think about it, if you look at it from this perspective, it's very weird, actually, that we can create an idea that exists nowhere in a material sense except within our own selves. And that we can then associate this with, in different ways, with different relationships to many different things on the outside. And so learning how to use these effectively generates magical technology, generates change. Now we're going back to magic as an action, right? So if you're learning how to create a series of symbols that are a bunch of hexagrams, then you can base those hexagrams on these questions of numbers, of mathematics, all of which are abstractions, right? All of which are using that magical technology to create a whole cosmology. It's a map of space and time. That's the I Ching. The tarot is a map of the elemental construction of the world of creation, and in the major arcana of the path of self-transformation. It's a map, right? The runes, likewise, are representations of these primordial forces that, by putting them into these letters, we then can interact with in different ways. So all of these are technologies that allow us to generate change in ourselves, in other people, and in our surroundings. And I mean, there are other things that have been applied in this same way that obviously are not thought of today as magic, but they're just as magical, right? So really, like the internet, what I'm communicating with you through is the ultimate product of abstraction that we've had to this day, right? Because it means that two people who have never seen each other, who will never know each other, can communicate, again, possibly beyond one's lifetime, and in a space that doesn't actually exist. It exists only in a server in a machine. But this is all happening because of, fundamentally, a bunch of ones and zeros that we've created into mathematical patterns, right? It's the astral plane made manifest. So why is this important? Because if you understand magic not as some kind of an airy-fairy thing that has no rationale, no explanation, I'm not trying to say that we need to like have some kind of an atheistic approach to magic or something like that. But what I am saying is that you have to get that if there's something you want to define as magic, then what you define has to be something that you can explain its function, right? And that it can therefore be useful. If you know what magic is, then you will actually know how to work with it, as opposed to just knowing that if you cast a tarot reading, it will show you some things, but you have no idea why, right? If you can understand the mechanics behind these things, then that leads you to be able to understand all kinds of other deeper layers of how you can then generate magic, and generate magic that works as opposed to magic that doesn't. Magic that's just, a fantasy in your head, or magic that doesn't actually go anywhere, or magic that doesn't actually have an effect, right? So you have to know how to apply the right tool in the right situation to create the right effects. If you don't have that, then you're just kind of you're shooting in the air, right? You don't have any kind of sense of context, and you're acting kind of like you're in a cargo cult or something, right? You're a tribal savage that knows that there's this thing here and it works, but you don't understand why. So that's all I wanted to talk about in today's video. If you like this video, please feel free to subscribe. Please check out the playlists in the channel, especially the Yifa Society playlist, where you'll find breakdowns of the hexagrams of the Ching and other interesting information. And if you're interested in a path, if you're interested in what I said today, for example, and you want to take that kind of an approach to spiritual practice, and you think you could use a framework, a curriculum, and supervision to do it, then please get in touch with me about the Yifa Society. Thank you very much.